How many of you took your happy pill this morning? I knew it because when I walked in the door, everybody just greeted each other and smiling and laughing and having such a great time. Isn't it a wonderful thing to be in joy classes? Yes. Amen. Amen. Okay, well.
And a reunion today.
Do what?
Reunion.
I know, we've got almost everybody's here. Wonderful. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had this thing turned off. There you go. I think I turned it off now. Y'all won't hear me twice. Okay, well, a few things are happening in the church. We have the open gym. Isn't that wonderful that our Family Life Center is open and the youth are able to go in there and play basketball, whatever? Am I still getting feedback? I'll just turn it off. Okay. Anyway, it's open bi-weekly on Mondays for the basketball and volleyball. And board game night is April 27th, 5 to 8 p.m. That's in the gym. Come and bring family-friendly games that you might have. How many of y'all like to play Mexican Train?
No.
Oh my goodness, I love that game. My girls at my shop, we meet on Thursdays, and when we have our Christmas party, they always want to play the train game. So, and laugh and cut up and have more fun. Of course, everybody's got a different set of rules. Aren't you glad God's only got one set of rules?
Sometimes we don't interpret them
Well, I know
correctly.
sometimes we don't pay that much attention, but one set of rules. I saw something on Facebook this morning, and I can't remember all of it, but there is one thing was sin, but there was only one Jesus Christ. And I thought, I can't remember all that, but I thought there's one Jesus Christ. What if every religion had their own Jesus Christ? Wouldn't that be a mess? But God saw to it to give us one, and we love Him. Okay. Anyway, if you want to come and join in the activities on April 27th, call the office if you have questions about it. And they've got some other things, baby dedication in the worship center on May 12th. So that's about what we have in announcements now.
The fish fry.
Oh, yes.
Tuesday.
From 55 plus, is that what it is?
I don't know. Is it limited to 55?
I don't know.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And what time? You know,
Normally they serve about 11, so we need to be up there earlier than that.
Cinnamon bun.
Yeah.
The fish fry.
Usually we've been meeting at the church.
Right.
And what time? Does anybody know what time?
If we need to be up there by, say, 10:30, we probably need to leave here about 9. I think we normally leave about 9 o'clock, don't we? Alice?
Jim said that if you have not paid your $15, that they can clear it so you can pay when you get there.
Oh, okay, we can pay when we get there, okay. Yeah, well, maybe, if we meet here at the church, maybe, we could do our $15 to one person, and then that one person have it all ready. Anyway, those of you who are going, I know you'll have a good time. If you want to be here at the church about 9, and then if anybody needs to ride with somebody, then we'll have several that I know we could take a couple in our car. Johnny?
What day is that again?
That's Tuesday.
Just the day after tomorrow?
The day after tomorrow, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. We didn't get a lot of information on it until last week, I think. I know I got an email that said that we had to have our count in by Monday last week. So. Anyway, meet here at 9 o'clock Tuesday morning, and we'll leave from here to go. And if if anybody needs a ride, I guess, I don't know, who wants to take charge of, rides? When are you going?
Yeah, we wasn't gonna be able to do it, but they canceled her eye surgery,
Oh, good.
so that was scheduled, but so we're gonna go.
Oh, okay, good, good, good. All right, well, we'll meet up here Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock, and then we'll get all together.
No, we
Who's
should
gonna
leave
ride
by
with who?
9,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Leave at 9.
yeah. We'll meet here at the church at 9 and leave probably within 10 minutes or so after that. But please, if you need a ride, get a hold of somebody in here. You can call, Susan, or call, Quanah, or, Grady.
I didn't volunteer.
Oh, he's not. Well, when you smile real big, I thought you were volunteering. No,
If we meet here, we'll work it out.
Yeah, there you go. All righty. Okay, well, we're looking forward to that, because that fish they have is so
Well, if
good.
anybody
Catfish.
decides to go, they can, it's last minute.
Yeah, yeah, if anybody wants to go, just, we turned in a number, but we could take more. Okay, good, that's good. All right, well, let's look at our prayer focus for this week. The church is congratulating Stephen and Sierra Rodriguez on the birth of Kinsley Grace Rodriguez. I like that name, Kinsley Grace. That's pretty.
I think that is Linda Arp's grandchild that was born.
Really?
I think so.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
it is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So
Linda
this
Arp's
is,
grandchild
oh, this is her grandchild.
that was born.
Oh, okay.
Or would it be great-grandchild? I'm
Oh,
confused.
yeah, the mother is her granddaughter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, great-grandchild, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Great grandchild. Oh, my goodness. Okay, if y'all remember Ruth Cunningham, who was in our class and moved away a couple years ago? Ruth Cunningham, she fell and, broke her hip, and she's in Memorial Hermann Medical Center. So we need to pray that, you know.
Is she here in Texas?
It says Hermann Memorial Medical Center, so I'm assuming it is.
Down here visiting.
Yeah.
Oh,
He was here
Oh.
visiting when she fell.
Oh, okay. Well, we certainly keep her in our prayers. And Larry Sharp, his surgery, to remove a cancerous tumor from his lung, and I understand it was successful. And he may be home by now.
And he is home.
Yeah, the last email I saw said that they were hoping to go home that afternoon, so. But we want to continue to keep him in our prayers, because, healing is, an important time. And, Ernestine, she's in Houston Healthcare Kingwood, room 350, and I understand she's gonna have the colonoscopy?
After the surgery.
The surgery, they're gonna do the surgery on Tuesday, I believe. So we wanna keep all of these in our prayers. Dorothy Curry, we wanna keep her in our prayers. And I'm looking down the list here, I'm not gonna call everybody, but the ones that, you know, in our class, and if there's someone else that you see you want to bring up, let me know. Susan, how are you and Jimmy doing?
Doing pretty good, thank you.
Pretty good,
This
wonderful.
week was a nice little turn with the arm,
Yeah,
and, he's been more active, and we're trying to keep his blood pressure and keep
yeah,
his sugar, and so far it's been okay,
okay.
so we're just gonna keep doing that.
Well, y'all just keep it up. We like hearing good news. Okay, and Miss Stella, she's recovering from a hip surgery, and I understand they were draining some fluid from her retina. I haven't heard how that went, but hopefully it went good. And Rich and Levon, we want to keep them in our prayers. I kind of laughed when I read one of the emails from Levon saying that she got Rich to go out to eat. And they stopped at Denny's, and he actually went in to eat, so that's great. That's a good sign. Shirley, how are you doing?
I'm coming along.
Coming along There you
Like
go.
I said, I'm getting up every
There,
morning. so
that's why I said if I get up in the morning, I'm good. Of course, Harold had a hard time getting me up this morning. I wanted to stay in that nice warm bed. But I have that problem anyway. I'm more comfortable when I'm laying in the bed and all nice and warm. And between Harold and my daughter's mother, get out of that bed. You're not gonna get well in the bed. So, anyway, we're glad you're doing good, Shirley. Louise, where's Louise? Oh, there you are.
Doing good.
You're doing good with your shoulder.
Yes.
Good, good, we're glad to hear that. Okay, June, your, appointment's coming up?
Yes, I've got one Tuesday night after I get home about 8:30 with the doctor on the phone.
Oh,
Okay.
They're gonna, where you can see each other on your phone.
oh, yeah, FaceTime, yeah,
FaceTime.
Yes.
Right, we're gonna do that Tuesday night about 8:30.
okay.
Which gives me a chance to say, don't forget, early voting starts tomorrow.
There you go.
And it's very short. You walk in, you vote, and walk out, and that's it. I mean, mine only has 3 items on it. Anyway,
Oh,
but
that's
no,
good.
Tuesday night I should find out also if there is a broken voting, if it's not.
Well, we'll keep you in prayer that all works out well.
And then start making appointments after that.
Debbie?
I'm having cataract surgery on my left eye tomorrow. I've been struggling for months. And, then I'll have my right eye done in 2 weeks. And then I have some basal cell things on my face that have to be addressed.
Okay.
But anyway, one week at a time
There
right
you
now.
go, yeah.
What day is that cataract surgery? Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
On
One
my
eye
left
tomorrow
eye.
and the other eye in a week.
It's May 6th.
May 6th, okay. So keep that, those, my surgery in your prayers. I know it's gonna be really good and you'll be so happy.
I know, I hope so.
Okay, we want to continue to pray for, Connie Basor's, daughter recovering from another stroke and has a hole in her heart, so we'll keep that in our prayer. And also, their children, healing in their marriages. It seems like the devil is just trying his best to disrupt everything. But praise God, we're not gonna let him do it. We're gonna, well, I used to have my children stomp on the devil when he got into our children's church. The kids got to acting up. I said, wait a minute, the devil is in here. Let's just stomp him out of here. Boy, them kids just love to stomp. They love to stomp, so we're just gonna stomp him out of this. Okay, let me see who else might be in our class. Pat, your mom's still doing okay? Good. Good. And Greg is doing okay, Jim? Okay. We want to remember the area churches that have requested prayer. And Mike Martin has a mission trip to Nicaragua.
He's over there now.
Oh, he's there now.
He's there
Okay.
now.
And I can't say that, Nicaragua?
Nicaragua.
Yeah. They're gonna be doing door-to-door evangelism and helping with the citywide revival.
I think he left last Thursday.
That's
So he'll be
Thursday.
back next Thursday. So
Oh,
they've
okay.
had some salvation.
Oh,
They've been, he said they've been visiting during the day, they've been visiting the sick, going to their homes,
yes,
been visiting with them,
yes.
praying for them and everything. He
That's
said some of
awesome.
them are in bad
Yeah,
shape.
that is awesome. Brother Don?
I just got a text from Lamont. Please tell me her mic is not on. I can't hear her.
Is that white, green, line on it?
Let's see. See if somebody can turn that on for me.
You might pull that mic closer to her.
Yeah,
It's on.
I thought I was talking loud enough everybody could hear me.
I hear you all live.
Okay, well, that is awesome what Mike and his team are doing, yes. Okay, we have military. We want to remember our military, remember our first responders, our police officers, all of those that put their life on the line for us every day. And our country needs our prayer desperately. Does anybody else have any requests in here before we go on?
What was this Gen 2 Gen offering?
I'm sorry?
That's, it's for scholarship.
That's for scholarships for
Oh,
camp, for
okay,
kids.
that's the camp. I just wanted to make sure.
The envelopes are in the front hall.
Yeah.
In the foyer.
Okay, anybody else? All right, well then, let's go to, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't
I
see you.
just want to remind everybody that Brandy will be having her hip surgery on the 25th.
Okay.
That's all I know.
The 25th?
25th on Thursday.
Okay. Okay, we'll keep her in prayer as well. All right, Susan? Does he want to admit he's having a birthday?
And Kathy Fields had one, and this is her first time back. She was a year younger last time I saw her.
I thought I stayed away long.
We remember.
Way to go, Pat.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's have our prayer, and then we'll have Kathy and Jimmy come up and give us some words of wisdom. All right, Brother Don, would you offer prayer for us this morning?
Father, we come to you this morning with grateful hearts, wanting to thank you for what you've done for us, how you provided for us through Jesus. Thank you for that, Lord, most of all. We pray that you bless this Sunday school class, such a good group of people. You've heard their many needs, their requests. Lord, attend to their needs and answer their prayers. We ask you to do that in the name of Jesus. Thank you for the way that you watch over us, provide for us. Lord, we bless you and we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Yes, ma'am.
We broke a record today. We had 26 members and 1 visitor. This is a record since COVID. We had not, I don't think we even had 25 before, so we
I love it because our class is growing by leaps and bounds. Yeah. Okay, Brother Jimmy and Sister Kathy.
back to the front.
Come on, Pat. You can do it. Jimmy can do it, you can do it.
Now, I know Big Jim's got a lot of wisdom
Oh,
here.
sure.
He's gonna unload the wagon here.
All right, Jimmy, come
Hey,
on,
one,
give us
he hides his
microphone so
well.
they can hear you. I know, the people online can't hear me.
Y'all think I got words of wisdom, you don't know me very well. But I would like to say, until I go to heaven, I like this house, this land. I like this class because of the people.
Amen.
Wait
Amen.
a minute, we gotta sing.
Words of wisdom. Well, because I'm one of the younger people in this class, maybe not the youngest, but close to it. All of my wisdom is from what you have taught me. So I have no words other than thank you for each and every one of you that have inspired my life. Thank you so much.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. God bless you and keep you. Happy birthday to you.
Y'all,
And may And now, here's Johnny.
here's Johnny.
Here, Johnny.
Good morning, everybody. And I would like to remind Jimmy and Quana, it's blessed are the peacemakers, not the pacemakers. here?
Wait a minute.
Batteries are bad. Okay. Levon and Richard, hopefully y'all can hear me. Okay?
She texted back and said thanks, so she obviously can hear me.
Okay.
Is any batteries in there?
Well, it's flashing again. It's flashing now. Let's see here. Okay.
It went out again.
It went out again. Okay.
Get online here.
Be sure to put them in right.
Throw it on the floor, why don't you?
Well, I did. There's a fine line between throwing and dropping. Okay. Okay, hopefully that fixes it. Technology and me are a lot alike. We're both great when we're working right. So, let's see here, let's move that around. Now, before we get started, I do want to say thank you for all your prayers. My mom's been home for now about a week and a half, and she's probably about where she was before this last incident. So she's not her spry 35-year-old self, okay? She's 89, but I think she's back to about where she was before. So, and Patricia's dad is situated in his assisted living home, and now we're working on financing, or she's working on financing. So, so continuing your prayers for Trish.
Where does your mom live?
Oh, my mom lives in Montgomery. Okay, yeah, west. What is it? Cape Conroe, I think, is the name of the subdivision. Okay, if you know where Walmart is in Montgomery, they live right there. Okay. Well, I guess you would say local with an hour-and-a-half drive. Okay, so, but she told me one time, well, that's better than us living in Reno for a 3-day drive. I said, yes, but we stayed there for 3 weeks. Okay, so we didn't just turn around and come right back home. So, and I enjoyed those 3 weeks. That was vacation time. So, anyway, but I want to thank you for all your prayers, and if you would, continue to lift Trish up in prayer as she looks for financial assistance for her dad. Okay, and one more thing before we get started. I've been asked about on our text group, how would we go about getting rid of the 19 group text on our phone? Okay, so if you want to, grab your phone out, and I'm going to tell you how you do it. Okay? Now, let me say this. If somebody's receiving... Who was that? Okay. Anyway, it wasn't me. Anyway, we can delete it from our own phones, okay? But if somebody else doesn't delete it from their phone, they can still text on that group of 19. So, the question I want to ask you before we get started is, do y'all want to delete the group, and let's try to minimize that? In fact, it's kind of funny. There's 2 groups of 19 out there. So, there was, and each one, the reason I say two groups is that each one has a different person missing than the other group. So, anyway, okay, if you're ready, okay, pull up your messages, and on the right-hand side, on the right-hand side of my phone, there's 3 dots in a row vertically, okay? And you hit those 3 dots, okay? You hit the delete button, okay? And,
I can't find it.
okay, well, that's what I'm going to tell you here, okay? Now, you've got a button up there that says all, but you don't want all. What you do is you kind of scroll up, pull your screen up, okay? And there's a group there's one group of 19 that mine starts with Ernestine Vale. Okay, you should see a group, if it's ours, it's 2 groups of 19, okay? Does this make sense? Okay, but that's one of the group of 19, correct, Alice?
Where does it tell me how many's on there?
Right here
Next to
on
the
top,
name.
see right there?
Where's the
Can
20?
you pull it up? It has 19.
Or if it's in here, it might be
I don't
small
see
and
19.
shadowed.
Marie.
I don't have the 3 dots.
You don't have the 3 dots. Oh, well, tell you what, is it an iPhone? Okay, iPhones are different, and I don't have an iPhone. This is for Android.
Okay, I just did iPhone on her. And when you get off,
You know, we could do a lesson on this, couldn't we? Yes, Susan.
okay, I was doing the iPad for, I'm sorry, for Marjorie, and at the top, it's got just all the people, I just pressed on it, a little thing comes up, delete, block, and you
Okay.
press that, and then it confirms it, and you press that again.
Okay.
Johnny, one more question, please. Would you please just send out something that's on the new one, and say new? Because I'm trying to find it on here and I'm not, so just.
Okay. Okay.
After church, whatever.
Yeah, when I added the last, Jane, when I added her, I did say this is the new link.
But when you've got thousands of emails on you,
Okay.
just like on my phone.
Well, I've got mine pinned.
And I was gonna say, if you put it as a favorite, it always will come up first. And then that's the one you always go back on. How do you make it a favorite?
I tell you.
An iPhone or something else?
If you hold your finger down on that group, that group, say the 20, when you hold it down, it'll come up and it'll have several questions, several little things you can do, and my top one is pinned, and I hit pin, and it puts it up here at the top of my screen.
Oh, that's what that means, that
Yeah, and then that way, everything that I get on this, because mine is called FBC Joy Class 20.
Cool.
And then everything goes, but then every time somebody does one of the 19s, then it pops back up on my phone again.
Right, if somebody uses that,
But normally, I get the same message on the Joy Class 20, so I just go ahead and delete that one.
well, I know, like, okay, when I send a message out,
But see, when I click on it, I get all the messages.
okay,
No,
when,
this is iPhone.
when I send a text out, it's always on the 20. Well, I say always. There was one I accidentally sent on a 19, and I sent it back out on the 20 because there is one person missing, and I do like for everybody to receive it. So, but more often than not, you'll see it on the 20.
Yeah.
But, okay, so do we want to continue this, or do we want to? Huh? Let's go to the lesson. Okay, everybody want to go to the lesson? Yeah. Okay.
We'll figure it out.
Okay. Let me, okay. Trish, if you'll let me know. She's letting me know I better get on the stick right now. Okay. Oh my goodness, last week's lesson, Jacob and God wrestled all night long. And Jacob realized that he couldn't win with a dislocated hip, but he didn't want to lose. And so he clung to God. And you know, that's sometimes as we go through life struggles, that brings us to a realization that we are dependent on God. I mean, I mean, in times of life, there's times when you think you've reached the bottom, and for it to get any worse, the bottom has to fall out. Sometimes the bottom falls out. And it's to encourage us to cling to God, to realize that we are dependent upon Him. I mean, I often say when we'll do it tomorrow, when we'll do it tomorrow, God doesn't guarantee us our next breath, much less the next day. So Jacob is brought to that point of realization that he is dependent upon God. And then Jacob is blessed again by God. It's at a place that they named Peniel, and I can't remember the meaning of the name, but
The face of God?
the face of God. You're right. You're right. The face of God, and because Jacob had seen God face to face, and his life had been spared. Because remember, God told Moses, Moses wanted to see God, and God said, you can't see me face to face, but I'll let you see the backside of me as I go past you. No man can see God face to face and live. However, Jacob did. He struggled with him face to face. Anyway, so as we get into, Esau and Jacob reconciled. And at this point, I would have thought that Jacob would have gone back to Bethel. I mean, that was where it all started for Jacob 20 years ago, wasn't it? There in Bethel, where he was he was fleeing for his life from Esau. And at Bethel, he encountered God. Or let's say God revealed himself to him. And Jacob encountered God there. This is where his journey started. This is where he said, well, if God will provide for me and clothe me and feed me and bring me back safely, then God will be my God, and I'll give him 1/10 of everything I own. And he named that place Bethel. Remember, it was named Luz, or Luz, however you pronounce it, which means almond tree. But he named it Bethel, the house of God. So anyway, and he made a vow that if God did this, then he would make this pillar, the house of God. I'm guessing the pillar would be the foundation for the house of God. And so that's when he goes to Haran and he works for 20 years. And I mean, now he's returned. He's got 11 sons. He's got a daughter. And they settle in Shechem. And Shechem Bethel is a little bit south. It's about, I think, 20 miles south of Bethel. Shechem, it said in one of the researches I did. But anyway, excuse me. And from my research here, it doesn't say in the Bible how long he had stayed here at Shechem, but most of the research that I have that people have done timelines on, it's been about 10 years. Because, sorry, y'all know I get distracted easily, right? So, but anyway. The timeline shows they've been there about 10 years or so. So, the boys have grown up, they're working the field, or they're working the herds, the sheep and the oxen and whatever else livestock they've got. Dinah, his only daughter, is a young lady now. And Dinah decides that she would like to get to know some of the other girls about her age, I guess. And, I mean, she's wanting companionship. I mean, good grief, 11 brothers. Who wouldn't want some female companionship, huh? So, anyway, so she goes into Shechem to try to get to know some of the other girls, and she's raped. And she's raped by the son of the chieftain. The chieftain's name is Hamor, and the man that rapes her is Shechem. And this also leads me to believe that she's a young lady, because hopefully he wouldn't rape a 6-year-old kid, right? So, but Anyway, Shechem falls in love with Dinah, and he wants to marry her, and Jacob's not the one who does the negotiating here. It's his sons. And they negotiate, if you get all the males in Shechem circumcised, that's our side of the covenant, we'll let y'all marry them. Well, that was a lie. That was to get them to a point where they could be incapacitated, because 3 days later, Levi and Simeon go into Shechem and they kill all the males. And then the other 9 boys come in, it says all the other sons. And I hate to think that Joseph is in that group, but it says all the other boys, all the other sons of Jacob went in and they looted, plundered, and they took what they wanted, and they took the women and the children as slaves. And Jacob's upset at this because he knows violence breeds violence. What is it? He who lives by the sword dies by the sword. So he's thinking, man, it's time for us to leave. And this is when God speaks to Jacob. Let's look in your books at page 84. I'm sorry, wrong one. When I read Joseph in the first verse, I went, that ain't it, that ain't it. Okay, page 75, we're reading Genesis 35, verses 1 through 4. And God said to Jacob, get up, go to Bethel and settle there. Build an altar there to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau. So Jacob said to his family and all who were with him, get rid of the foreign gods that are among you. Purify yourselves and change your clothes. We must get up and go to Bethel. I will build an altar there to the God who answered me in my day of distress. He has been with me everywhere I have gone. Then they gave Jacob all their foreign gods and their earrings, and Jacob hid them under the oak near Shechem. You know, it's been 30 years since his encounter with God at Bethel. And I would have thought that with the return back to Canaan, that he would have made it back a lot sooner than the 10 years he's been there, but he hasn't. And he built, let's admit, he did build an altar in Shechem, and he did worship there. He sacrificed to God there. And so, but it's been 30 years and he hasn't gone back to where it all started. And I'm wondering if he's gotten into a spiritual slump. I could tell you from personal experience. It had been quite a while here, guys, since I taught Sunday school when I became the Sunday school leader here. And God had been nudging me. And finally, Jonathan Swirsky said, Johnny, they need Susan was going through some issues at the time.
And I recommended you.
You recommended me, so I can blame you. Okay. So God nudged her to nudge Jonathan to judge me, or not to judge me, maybe it was a judgment, okay, but to nudge me. And I accepted the nudge. And it's been great, guys. But I've gotten spiritually lazy. I mean, I was still coming to church. I was still making my tithe, going through the motions. But I think we've all kind of been there, haven't we?
Yes.
Where we've gone through the motions and we're in a spiritual slump.
Yeah.
So what does it take to get us out of this? I hate to say it, but I'm thinking this massacre at Shechem was God nudging Joseph. And I'm thinking if Joseph had been more diligent in going back to Bethel to reaffirm and confirm his commitment to God, this whole Shechem mess could have been avoided. And so anyway, he gets the nudge, and God speaks to him, says, get up, go to Bethel, settle there. Not just go there, live there. and build an altar. Build an altar to the God who appeared to you when you were fleeing your brother Esau. And you know, I think that brought to mind, Jake, that would bring to my mind, yeah, it's been 30 years since then. My, how time flies, doesn't it? My, how time flies. Whether you're having fun or not, it flies. What is it? Time and tide wait for no man. But it brought to mind, yes, I was fleeing from Esau. I was fleeing for my life. You know what? I made a commitment to God back there. Uh-oh. Is my teaching that bad, guys?
She agreed with that, so.
No, okay. Okay. Anyway.
Church on time.
Uh-oh. So anyway, it brings all this back to mind. And what does Abraham say to his family, to his whole household? Get rid of the foreign gods among you. Now we know that Rachel had stolen some of, I say at least some of them, though she may have stolen all of them, of Laban's idols there in his house. When they left Haran. And remember, Laban pursued them and said, man, somebody's stolen my household idols. And so Jacob gave him the permission to search every tent, but we know what Rachel did. Or not, yeah, Rachel. Anyway, she was sitting on them and she asked her father to pardon her, but she was having her period. So anyway, and then Jacob lays into Laban, you didn't find anything, did you? And I mean, anyway, so we all know that, but the point is, Rachel had stolen some, so we know she had some. We know that probably the slaves and servants that Jacob had acquired back in Haran, they probably had their own idols, and that the ones that they had captured there in Shechem, those people came with their idols. Jacob says, get rid of them. You know, sometimes, I know that we don't bow down and we worship gods or idols, okay? I can tell you, everybody knows I'm a Cowboys fan, right? Everybody knows I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. Love me or hate me, or love or hate the Cowboys, I'm a Cowboys fan. And I used to be really devoted, wasn't I, Trish? If Pastor Mike or if the preacher went long on the sermon, I'm going, oh, come on, hey, the game's getting ready to start. You know, I mean, that was my idol. That took my time. I was committed to him. Had I allowed that to take God's place in my heart? I would hate to think so, but you know what? When it got time for the game to start, hey, come on, I'm ready to go. And I told one pastor, I said, if the Holy Spirit can't get my attention in 20 minutes, he's probably not going to get my attention at all. So, but and the pastor said there's a lot of truth in that, but that didn't keep him from preaching 30. so, but anyway.
He's a Cowboy fan.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but anyway. So, but you know, for us, maybe there's something that has taken a lot of time that we could use, or that takes away our attention from God. Okay. And keeps us from focusing on Him. And keeps us from being devoted to Him. So for us, maybe it means changing our schedule. Maybe it means, I will say this, since the pandemic, well, I started before, but I'm not quite so devoted to the Cowboys. When we go out to eat lunch with Margaret and Royce, I don't care when we get back. In fact, a lot of times I usually go take a nap. I turn the game on for background noise and turn it down low, okay? And all I look for is a score later. But, you know, for me to get devoted, the title of the lesson is Renewed. For me to be renewed would be for me to get rid of my attention on the Dallas Cowboys, especially.
Recorded, Johnny.
Huh?
You can record it.
You know, somebody always tells you the score.
Oh.
And then, and then you go, who cares? I might watch the highlights, but that'd be about it. But sometimes we need to change our schedules, maybe our families. Lately, Trish and I we've been devoted to our parents, and we're honoring God by honoring our parents as He's told us to do. And life happens. And I'm sure here in Jacob's case, life happened, and it got his attention off of God. But when God called him again, He said, get rid of what's hindering you from knowing God. And then He said, purify yourselves. Take a bath. You boys smell like sheep. Okay? I smell pretty bad when I've been working on the car, which I don't do anymore. But when I did work on the car, changing oil and then getting sweaty, Trish said she loved the smell of the oil, but not with all that other stuff. She didn't want me to go to bed smelling like that, okay? But for us, if something's gotten in the way of our devotion to God, we need to confess it. We need to repent from it, and we need to ask God to forgive us. That would be how we purify ourselves today. And then He says, change your clothes. Maybe we need to change what we're doing, what we've been doing. We've gotten into a sloppy habit. It'll wait. I'll call that. I'm going to get personal. I'll call Stella next week sometime, or I'll call Quanah sometime next week, or tomorrow. I'll see my dad call me on the phone. I'll call him in an hour because I'm busy with something else, okay? And then I forget to call him back in an hour. I get into a sloppy habit. For me, to change my clothes would be to change change my actions, change my attitudes to where I can, act appropriately, where I'll call Quanah when the week passes through my mind, or Alice, or Kathy, or Stella, or my dad. I'll change my behavior. And then He tells them why. We're going to Bethel. And I'm going to build an altar there. And I'm going to build an altar there to who? The God who was with me in my distress. He remembered what was happening to him at the time. You know, when Trish and I come here for Sunday school, I always remember it was in this building that we got married. For us, we had been dating a couple of years before, but our life together as a married couple started here 50 years ago. It's good to remember those things. When I was a child, when I was about 11 or 12, I don't remember the date exactly, but I do remember it was a hot summer evening in a revival at Airway Baptist Church in South Houston area. That's where I was saved, and that's where I was baptized. And I don't even know if the church is still there. It was just across from the trailer park we were living in. But every once in a while, I'll go back and I'll remember that. That's where I encountered God. And this is where Trish and I began our life together 50 years ago. It's good to go back and remember those things that, you know, that's why we observe the Lord's Supper. It's to remind ourselves of what Jesus did on the cross for us. That his body was broken there. That his blood was shed there for us. And you know, and he says, we're going to go there to Bethel. I'm going to build an altar there to the God who was there in my distress, and he's been with me ever since. We can say that, can't we? That the God, even though it's been 30 years since that, and Bethel or Jacob, I'm sure had done some things he wasn't proud of. I've done some things in the last 60 years I'm not proud of. I'm sure there's a lot of things we've all done that we're not proud of. But thank God that my eternity is not based on my performance. My eternity is based on God's promise to me that I accepted the gift of salvation that he gave me through Jesus Christ. And I can go back and I can remember, and I am assured of my eternity with God. He's been with me ever since. He's been with me ever since. And how did the people respond? They gave all their idols and their earrings. Now, why their earrings? Couple of things have been suggested. But you know what I remember? I've got 5 minutes. What I remember is that a lot of people wear crosses, whether it means being a Christian to them or not, or they'll wear a pendant, or they'll wear earrings or a bracelet. I'm sure these earrings, there's evidence that the idols actually wore earrings, that the people would put earrings on their idols. I'm sure that their jewelry had some religious reference to the God that they worshipped. They gave it all to Jacob, and Jacob went and buried it. And I'm not sure, you know, I probably would have burned the wooden ones, and I'm not sure what the custom was at the time, but I'm sure that's part of the custom. Remember in the Old Testament, well, in the New Testament too, if the scrolls they were reading would wear out, and they would get to a point where they couldn't be used anymore, instead of destroying them, they would take them outside the camp and they would bury them. So that's part of the culture of the times. It's sacred, and I'm not surely the idols weren't sacred to Jacob, but maybe as part of the culture, that's why they buried it. That was just what you did. So anyway, so they bury it. And let's go to page 77. It's Genesis 35, verses 5 through 8. And when they set out, a terror from God came over the cities around them, and they did not pursue Jacob's sons. So Jacob and all who were with him came to Luz, that is Bethel, in the land of Canaan. And Jacob built an altar there and called the place El Bethel, because it was there that God had revealed himself to him when he was fleeing from his brother. Deborah, the one who had nursed and raised Rebekah, now Rebekah is Joseph's mother, okay, raised Rebekah, died and was buried under the oak south of Bethel, so Jacob named it Allon Bacuth. There was a good reason that Jacob had a good reason to fear retaliation from the cities around them because of the actions of his sons in slaughtering the males at Shechem. Violence breeds violence. And from what I'm reading here, they were set on retaliation. But God told Jacob that he would protect him, that he would provide for him. And he did. He set a terror into the hearts of the people so that they didn't even pursue Jacob's sons. God is still fulfilling his promise to Jacob and his family in spite of what they've done. Surely God did not approve of this slaughter, this deception by the sons of Jacob. I know that there's going to be later on when God tells the Israelites when they're coming back into Canaan, kill them all. But that was for their protection also, to keep them from worshiping other gods. But God protected. And they reached Bethel, and true to his word, Jacob built an altar there. And he worshiped God. I mean, that's why else would you build an altar, right? You sacrifice your animal or animals, and you worship God there. And he calls the place El Bethel. It's God, the house of God. And I'm running out of time. Okay, so let me try and wrap this up here in a couple of minutes. But he calls it, Bethel really is a focus on Bethel, the house of God. But by naming it the God of the house of God, he's focusing on God. He's bringing that this is where God is, or God, and we now, gods were local at that time, but